drifting back in time, far beyond kings and crusades. Before the printing press and the telescope, before cities had walls of glass or maps were measured by satellites. Tonight, we are walking along the Mediterranean shore, where the waves are quiet and the wind smells faintly of salt and oil lamps. The sky is ink dark, scattered with stars, and the city ahead of you, Alexandria, glows with a warm amber hush. It's very late. Most of the homes are asleep, though a few balconies still flicker with last cups of tea, soft voices, and cooling bread. You're standing at the edge of history, and your slippers make almost no sound against the stone. There's a lighthouse far off, casting wide and slow arcs across the harbor. You can just barely see it wink. You pass a quiet guard at the entrance to a complex of low domes and courtyards. He doesn't stop you. Maybe he's half asleep. Maybe he knows where you're going. Maybe this is a dream and all doors are open. You walk through one of those doors now, tall, arched, and carved with shapes you don't recognize. This is the library, not just a room, not just a building, but a living thing, a place where words breed, where scrolls outnumber people by tens of thousands, and the walls seem to lean in to listen. You step carefully, because even your breath feels too loud. There's a silence here, but not the cold kind. It's thick and warm, like a blanket that's been folded around knowledge. You move past a scribe hunched over a reed pen. He's translating a Babylonian text into Greek, murmuring as he goes. You hear a strange word, kalku, and for a moment, you know what it means, though the meaning slips away before you can hold it. Someone nearby is cataloging Egyptian treatises on astronomy. A child no older than 12 carries a tray of sharpened styluses like he's handling the pharaoh's crown. He nods at you solemnly. You nod back. There are no shelves like you're used to, no tall, neat rows. These are vaults, alcoves carved from stone, filled with bundles of papyrus bound in twine. Some scrolls are coated in beeswax. Others smell like dried flowers and seawater. You pick one up. It's heavier than it looks. It has no title. The ink is hand-mixed, full of crushed berries and soot. You read a single line. It says, "To know the heavens, first learn the silence of stars." Someone clears their throat behind you. Softly, you place the scroll back and keep walking. This is the Mausian, not just a library, but a temple to memory, funded by Canes, built for minds. Scholars from as far as India and Carthage have slept under its roof, shared meals of olives and figs, argued over planetary motion, and memorized passages just to recite them by moonlight. No one agrees exactly how many texts are here. 40.000, 400.000. The number changes depending on who is whispering. Some claim the scrolls could circle the earth 3 times. Others say there are maps that show rivers that no longer exist, recipes for inks that don't fade, and blueprints for machines we've yet to reinvent. Some even believe the building shifts, revealing new rooms to those who need them. You pass a quiet courtyard where someone is plucking strings on a 3-stringed lyre. The sound isn't perfect, but it drifts through the air like a thought that didn't want to be forgotten. You sit on a bench beneath an olive tree growing straight through the stone. It was planted here a generation ago, and the scribes allow it to grow because its roots crack the floor so slowly no one minds. You close your eyes. The tree hums. In the distance, You hear the low sounds of ships creaking in the harbor. You feel the warm pull of sleep. But the library does not sleep. It shifts gently as the night folds around it. You hear parchment rustle from a room you haven't entered. Somewhere, a scholar sneezes and murmurs an apology to the scrolls. You rise, step deeper, through another hall, past a half-finished statue, past an open tablet with the faintest gold dust still clinging to its etchings. The floor hums faintly beneath your bare feet. You feel, for a moment, that the library is not just around you, it's noticing you. Not in a threatening way, in the way a stream notices a stone placed in its current. The way an old cat watches a new breeze enter the room. You pass a cracked door with no handle. You don't open it, no one does. They say it leads to something old, older than Alexandria, that it existed before the city, before even Egypt had a name. But that's a story for another night. You return to the edge of the main hall. You sit again, you listen, and then, very faintly, very far away, you feel the sea change. A ship has entered the harbor, one that shouldn't be here. But the library doesn't know that yet, and neither do you. You open your eyes just a little, and the light in the library has changed. It's still nighttime. Alexandrian nights are long and warm like thick honey, but the lamps are burning lower now. Some have gone out entirely, leaving cool patches of shadow on the stone floor. You hear footsteps behind you, soft and hurried, and the distant scrape of a chair being pushed back just a bit too quickly. Something has shifted in the rhythm of the place. You get up and begin walking, this time deeper, toward the rooms visitors rarely see. The parts of the library whispered about more than shown. There's a hallway where the air feels cooler, not from breeze but from age. You pass a wall lined not with shelves, but with niches, each holding a single scroll, sealed in glass. Their spines are marked with ink that has turned the color of old plums. No one touches these, not anymore. You come to a chamber lit only by a small oil flame flickering inside a bronze basin. Around it, the air dances slightly, and in this soft, uncertain light, you see scrolls upon scrolls, some open, some rolled, some bound in bundles with silken thread. There's no organization here, no neat Greek order. This is where the fragments live. Here, in what the scribes call the Hall of Shadows, you kneel beside a scroll that looks older than the floor. It's cracked like desert clay. You don't read it, you just hold it, feeling the weight of the thing. It smells like cedar and fire and something else, dust, maybe, or forgotten breath. It's written in a script you can't understand, maybe Phoenician or something older. You set it down carefully, but even that feels like a kind of betrayal. Outside the chamber, you pass by a scholar snoring gently into his own sleeve. His head rests on a pile of texts, one of which is open to a page titled Stars That Refuse to Move. You smile softly. Even the most brilliant minds sometimes nap on the job. You turn a corner and enter another room, taller, grander, with frescoes of constellations painted across the domed ceiling. It's said this chamber was once used to chart the paths of comets and eclipses. Some say the dome itself can move, that it once aligned with the stars above so perfectly, it could mirror the sky. Someone has written in the margins of a wall-mounted diagram, if the gods are silent. Perhaps the stars are their voice. You walk beneath that, trailing your fingers along the mural's edge. There's a crack in the wall, very fine, like a hairline fracture in marble. But it's recent, and it whispers of something coming. You duck under an archway into what was once the botanical wing. Scrolls on herbs, on cures and poisons, on the right moon phase to plant barley, or how to make a paste that turns wounds to water. You pass a window. Outside, the harbor gleams. Ships, many ships, but one, that one, it's bigger, bristling with rigging and soldiers. That's not a trade ship. And yet the library continues as it always has, pages turned. Ink smudged, voices low and rhythmic. The walls here are too thick for cannon fire. The scrolls too busy to notice war. You find your way to a chamber with drawers instead of shelves. Some are labeled, others are blank. You open one and find a sheaf of folded parchment, a personal letter. Someone wrote of missing their father's voice, of a dream involving fish and sand. You read it twice before slipping it back, as if afraid to keep someone else's memory for too long. You descend a spiral staircase now. It groans beneath your step, not from age, but from too many secrets. You emerge into a cellar of clay jars and wax-sealed crates. Some contain scrolls so fragile they're stored in cedar dust. Others are labeled only in single words, rain, maps, whispers, not yet. You pause at one marked dreams. You open it. Inside, you find nothing, or maybe everything. You look up, through the cracks in the stone, a faint glow. The library is alive, yes, but it doesn't know the world is changing. It doesn't know a war is brewing in the streets outside. That soon, the docks will burn. That some foolish hand will light a torch too close to a grain store. That the wind will catch fire like a rumor and carry it toward knowledge too delicate to fight back. Not yet, not tonight. Tonight, the library still breathes, and you are its witness. You rise before dawn, not because you planned to, but because the sounds of the harbor roused you, too steady, too deliberate for this hour. A chain clinks, a rope creaks taut, and you hear the low bark of a commander. Distant but firm, you slip out of the shadowed corner where you'd been resting, scroll impressions still warm on your fingertips, and make your way toward the sea. The city is waking differently today. Alexandria usually stirs slowly, like a cat in the sun, stretching through the morning with measured breath and sweet dates. But this morning, it feels more like a held breath, a city bracing. You follow the hill down toward the eastern port. The wind smells of salt and rust. And there, anchored just beyond the lighthouse's reach, you see the Roman ships. Their sails are drawn tight like clenched fists. Their hulls are heavy and armored, not built for trade but for siege. At the forefront, a flagship bearing the standard of Julius Caesar. He's not supposed to be here. The Romans were not invited. This is Egypt's mess, they said, a Ptolemaic squabble between siblings. Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy the 13th, jostling for power like two cats fighting in a curtained room. Caesar had other problems. Pompey was dead. Rome was bruised. Why would he care about Alexandria? But now his ships are here, and he's stepping ashore. You don't see him right away, just the ripple he causes. Soldiers appear like ants under stone, quiet, armored, observant. Alexandria's locals eye them from balconies. Bread vendors grip their baskets tighter. A child drops a plum and doesn't pick it up. The tension is oddly civilized. No shouting, no immediate violence, just the soft noise of rearrangement. as if the city knows how to adapt even when threatened. You walk toward the waterfront. You overhear two men discussing taxes in low tones. But they're really speaking about Caesar. Will he support Cleopatra, or the boy king her brother? Or neither? The scribes think he wants grain. The priests think he wants gold. You think he's just watching for now. Caesar himself is said to be in the palace, meeting with diplomats, drinking wine with too much water, and pretending to care about protocol. You take a different path. You follow the servants. They always know more. In the side halls of the palace, there's movement, fresh linen being carried, vessels of oil, a new scent, something medicinal. A woman whispers that Cleopatra herself has returned, smuggled in beneath Caesar's nose, perhaps even in a carpet. Another swears she saw her in full makeup by moonlight. You smile at the rumors. Alexandria runs on stories, but one thing is clear. Caesar's presence has stirred the city. You pass the old customs house and watch Roman officers inspecting crates. They touch everything, lift amphorae of olive oil, unfurl scrolls carelessly, snap the necks of perfume bottles just to smell them. A scholar from the Mausian yells at them. They ignore him. Later, by the grain silos, you hear arguments. Caesar's troops have barricaded certain streets for safety. Locals protest. It doesn't escalate, but it hardens the air. You duck into a small courtyard. An old woman is feeding pigeons. She nods at you. The last time foreign soldiers stood on these stones, the Nile ran backward, she mutters. You ask if that's true. No, she smiles, but the city felt it. That night, Alexandria does not sleep, nor do you. You walk its alleys, ears open. Fires crackle in lanterns. Cats dart between fruit stalls. You smell coriander, sweat, ink, and salt. Soldiers are everywhere, their sandals clapping against stone in unison. It's not loud, it's worse, it's precise. You stop near the temple complex, where priests have begun whispering new prayers into old spaces. One priest pauses and watches the sky. The gods, he says, are turning their faces, not away, just aside. You're not sure what that means, but the thought lingers. Someone plays a lyre softly from a window above you. It sounds more like a lullaby than a song. Children cry in confused tones. Lovers speak too quickly, and somewhere in all of this, the harbor creaks under the weight of Roman ambitions. Somewhere, Cleopatra is planning, Caesar is waiting, the library is unaware. For now, it remains untouched. The scrolls rest peacefully. Scribes continue to debate the curve of the earth and the mathematics of music. Someone argues about whether bees have knees. They do, sort of. You find a quiet corner in the western courtyard. Beneath a pomegranate tree, a page flutters past you, just a single sheet, inked with half a poem in ancient Greek. The words read like the sea, fluid, mournful, inevitable. You try to remember them, just in case, but the air grows warmer. The sea grows restless. The ships in the harbor shift like wolves circling a fire. And you, standing at the edge of the palace courtyard, feel something soft and terrible press against your chest. The future has arrived early. The next morning arrives as a gray whisper. There is no fanfare, no bird song, just the low groan of timbers, the soft clatter of amphorae being moved, and the undeniable tension that has now embedded itself in Alexandria like a splinter under the skin. You rise slowly, brushing dust from your tunic, and glance at the harbor once more. The Roman ships haven't moved, but the number of soldiers in the city has grown. A quiet expansion, strategic, precise, and unnerving. You follow the stone-paved streets toward the center of the city. The library's outer courts are open as always, but fewer people pass through today. A young girl sweeps the stairs with unnecessary force. A librarian pauses mid-step when he sees a Roman soldier casually examining a statue of Athena. Helmet tilted in amusement, the scroll keepers pretend to carry on as usual, but their eyes keep flicking toward the windows. Inside the great hall, the scent of ink and oil is sharp. A heated discussion rages between two scholars near the catalog desk. One insists that Caesar's presence is temporary, a political courtesy. The other, older and more cynical, says Caesar never sets foot anywhere without leaving a boot print. You pass them quietly and move deeper into the stacks. The air is cooler here. Scrolls sleep in neat rows, wrapped in linen and labeled in a dozen languages: Greek, Coptic, Latin, even Sanskrit. You run your fingers along a collection of astronomy treatises. There's something comforting about their silence. The math still works. The stars haven't changed, but the city has. Down by the quay, rumors spill faster than wine. Ptolemy forces have re-entered the city from the western gate, furious that Caesar may favor Cleopatra. A scuffle broke out near the Serapeum. The Roman cohort assigned there managed to contain it, but only barely. There's talk that Caesar has demanded repayment of debts owed to Rome, a clever political move that frames his intervention as practical, not personal. Some say Cleopatra is already in the palace with him, that she speaks Latin like a bird sings, that she wears her eyeliner like armor. Others say Caesar is using her, just as she is using him. Both may be true, or neither. You return to the library in the afternoon. The halls buzz with low voices, more tense than before. Someone swears they saw a Roman officer wandering unsupervised near the restricted way. Another claims a scroll was taken and not logged. There's no proof, but anxiety builds not from evidence, but from presence. You sit beside a tall window with a view of the sea. A boy nearby is copying a diagram of an Archimedean screw. He hums as he works, oblivious to the political storm outside. You almost envy him. Then the shouting starts. It comes from the eastern courtyard. Not a brawl, yet, but heated voices. Accents you don't recognize shouting over those you do. You rush outside. A Roman patrol has stopped a wagon carrying papyrus sheets. The merchant is screaming. The soldiers insist it's contraband. The merchant insists it's registered. Neither side yields. Someone throws a stone. It misses, but it changes everything. Swords are drawn. The merchant falls. Blood soaks the sandstone. The soldiers retreat with the wagon. The crowd surges, and Alexandria exhales its patience. By nightfall, the city has shifted again. Barricades go up, not formal ones, but carts dragged across alleys. Crates stacked at intersections. Citizens light torches and post sentries. Roman soldiers double their patrols. The priests close the temples early. Somewhere, a mosaic is defaced. Somewhere else, a Roman centurion disappears. The library remains open, but just barely. Fewer scholars arrive. Fewer scrolls are handled. Someone locks the eastern wing, just in case. In the palace, Caesar convenes an emergency council. You hear whispers through the servants' corridor. Ptolemy men demand that Caesar leave the city. Cleopatra remains unseen but very present. Some say she's already writing speeches in Greek and Latin. Others say she's taken to wearing Roman perfume. At the harbor, the Roman fleet tightens its circle. Some ships shift closer to shore. One of them has a catapult on deck now, aimed inland. No one says anything, but everyone notices. You drift through the city like smoke. You pass a bakery still trying to operate, a barber giving hurried haircuts, a mother teaching her daughter to weave. Life continues, nervously, as if every moment might be the last one that still feels normal. Then come the fires. You don't see how it starts. No one does. The stories contradict each other. Some say Roman soldiers, cornered by Ptolemy men, lit the harbor warehouses to prevent supplies from falling into enemy hands. Others say Ptolemy forces started the blaze to drive Caesar's troops from the shore. Another rumor claims a drunken brawl knocked over a lantern. One theory even suggests Caesar ordered the fire himself to block the western approach. Historians still debate this, but you don't need scholars to tell you what's real. You smell it first, wood and pitch and burning ink. The smoke creeps across the sky like a spider. The eastern harbor glows red. You run. You're not alone. People flood the streets. Some carry buckets. Some carry scrolls. Some carry nothing but their children. You reach the waterfront. Flames leap from warehouse to dock. The fire clings to the rigging of ships. The wind, cursed wind, fans it inward, and then you see it. A single ember, carried high, kisses the dry roof of the warehouse adjacent to the library. Then another, then 20. You scream for help. Others join you. A chain of buckets forms. Water sloshes. Hands bleed. The fire doesn't care. Within hours, the outer buildings are burning. You race into the scroll annex. The air is thick. You help lift bundles of manuscripts, handing them down a human chain that stretches into the night. People move like ants in reverse, trying to rescue the colony from the flame. The library isn't built for this. Its stone bones resist, but the wood within is old and dry. One spark lands in the roof beam and spreads like ink on cloth. You hear it before you see it, a groan from the structure, as if it understands what's happening. You don't stop, not yet. A scholar near you is sobbing, not from fear, but grief. That scroll, she says, pointing at a burning alcove. That was the only copy of Eratosthenes' second treatise on lunar shadows. You grab what you can. Your arms fill with papyrus. You run. Outside, people form chaotic piles of rescued documents. They use anything they can find, bowls, satchels, even their own clothes, to carry the scrolls to safety. Children pass parchment. Elders shield clay tablets with their own backs. The fire continues. By dawn, the sky is the color of ash. The main hall is gone. The central archive has collapsed. You sit on the steps of the observatory wing, soot-covered, exhausted, and shaking. Around you, survivors move like ghosts. Some cradle scrolls like infants. Others simply stare. You don't speak. You listen to the crackle of dying flame, to the whisper of the sea, to the silence where knowledge used to live. And somewhere, across the city, Caesar still holds court. The smoke lingers for days. It coils travels through the city's avenues like a memory too stubborn to leave. You move slower now, everyone does. Eyes are rimmed red, not just from ash, but from what's been lost. Alexandria was always a place of noise and brilliance, and now it murmurs, timidly. The library, or what's left of it, has become a pilgrimage site. People come not to read, but to grieve. You pass one man running his hand along the scorched stone, whispering names of scrolls like lost friends. Another leaves flowers, jasmine, already wilting. You try to help where you can, reshelving surviving manuscripts, copying fragments, reuniting scholars who feared one another dead. But the weight of loss is inescapable. The air itself feels thinner, like a part of Alexandria's soul has been inhaled by the fire. The astronomers no longer argue. The philosophers sit quietly, staring at the walls. Caesar issues a decree, an apology wrapped in political silk. He promises compensation, pledges Roman resources for rebuilding, says the fire was an accident. Some believe him, most don't. Cleopatra remains in the palace. Whispers say she's been seen beside Caesar more often now, that she advises him in private, that he listens. Her brother, Ptolemy the 13th, vanishes from court. A rumor says he drowned while trying to escape. Another claims he's regrouping. Either way, Cleopatra emerges from the fire not just unscathed, but ascending. You watch her from a distance one afternoon, standing on the palace balcony in a robe of deep indigo. Her face unreadable, but when she turns away, you catch a flicker, not of triumph, but resolve, the kind of resolve that builds cities or burns them. In the quarters near the gymnasium, Roman engineers arrive with fresh plans, wider roads, better aqueducts, fireproof granaries. You're handed a chisel and pulled to help clear rubble from a collapsed street. The work is slow, measured, honest. It's easier than thinking. One day, beneath a broken archway, you find a single scroll wedged behind a fallen stone. The leather wrapping is singed, but the contents mostly intact. It's a commentary on Egyptian embalming rituals, interspersed with poems. You carry it back to the scribes like a hero. They thank you with tea and bread, the quiet kind of celebration. Some nights, you still dream of the fire, but more often now, you dream of rebuilding. Alexandria, for all its knowledge, has always been a city that forgets how fragile it is until something reminds it. And now, it remembers. You begin to see small signs of defiance. A mural painted over a scorched wall, depicting a phoenix in bright ochre. Children playing tag around a broken statue, shouting Plato quotes like battle cries. An old woman opens a bookshop out of her home and refuses to charge scholars. If we don't read, she says, we'll forget how to think. Even Caesar's demeanor shifts. He becomes quieter, less Roman in posture. You hear him speak to a crowd one day, voice low and ragged. I came for diplomacy. I found fire, but what I leave behind, may it be peace. No one claps, but no one throws stones either. The library is not rebuilt, not yet, but a plan begins to form. Scribes gather in the courtyard, unrolling salvaged scrolls and sorting them by language, topic, origin. They assign nicknames to each section, the ashes, the survivors, the children. You're placed in charge of the children. Texts written by or for young minds. Fables, riddles, math problems disguised as stories. It's not glamorous, but it's hopeful. Cleopatra visits once. She walks the edge of the courtyard, fingers trailing the air near each shelf. She says nothing, but before she leaves, she places a single ring on a stone ledge. You recognize the crest, an ibis in flight, a sacred symbol, a silent promise. Soon, foreign scholars begin to arrive again, carefully, cautiously. One from Athens says she came to see what fire couldn't destroy. Another from Babylon brings a sealed box inside, replicas of texts once stored here. We made copies, he says, just in case. The rebuilding attracts attention beyond Egypt. Rome sends funding. Greece offers architectural support. Even Judean scholars arrive, curious about what might be rebuilt from what was nearly erased. And yet, there's always the ache. You walk the burned halls one last time. The scent of char and ink still clings. You find a scorched fragment near where the astronomy texts once were. Just 3 words remain legible, and still they rise. You smile, fold the scrap, place it in your satchel. On the last day before your departure, you sit at the harbor watching the Roman ships prepare to leave. Caesar, they say, is returning to Rome. Cleopatra will remain. The future will unfurl, tangled, glorious, painful, as it always does. The lighthouse still stands. The sky is clear. Alexandria exhales. And this time, the breath is full of beginnings. You linger in Alexandria, not because of duty anymore, but because the city pulls at you like a tide. Its marble streets, though cracked, still shimmer under the sun. Its people, bruised by fire and foreign rule, still rise early and barter for pomegranates as though the world didn't end last week. You've never seen a place rebuild itself with such stubborn poetry. The library's courtyard becomes your second home. Each morning, you return to the children's section, where fragments of wisdom for young minds now sit in neat rows. You've taken to reading them aloud to small groups, curious apprentices, wandering merchants, children with soot still beneath their fingernails. You read about animals who outwit canes, stars that guide lost ships, numbers that dance into riddles. They listen, not because the stories are new, but because the telling has returned. One boy asks if the library will ever be like it was. You shake your head gently. No, you say, but it will be something else. Something we build together. At night, you walk the alleys with a lamp, not because you need the light, but because you want to be part of it, the flicker of life returning. Taverns hum again. Musicians plug melodies from memory. A woman carves miniature statues of Thoth and sells them for a song. You buy one, keep it in your pocket. One evening, a debate breaks out near the old gymnasium. Philosophers, scribes, and former soldiers arguing about what knowledge is most worth preserving. One says mathematics, it makes bridges, measures land. Another argues for poetry, it sustains the soul. A soldier votes for military manuals. We only protect what we understand how to defend. He insists. You offer a suggestion, preserve questions. Answers change. The group falls silent. Then one man chuckles. A good librarian's answer. They toast you with sour wine. Word spreads that Cleopatra is preparing a formal restoration decree, a public effort, inviting scholars across borders to contribute to a new vision, a library not of conquest, she says in one speech, but of conversation. The phrase echoes through the city. Children painted on walls, Merchants etch it into clay, but not everyone approves. A Roman officer corners you one morning. He wears gold accents and a look of permanent disapproval. Too many minds gathering in one place. He mutters, dangerous, makes people think they have choices. You smile at him, thinking is more dangerous when it's silenced. He doesn't respond, just walks away, leaving the scent of iron behind. The tension between Roman authority and Alexandrian revival grows. Not openly, but in subtleties. A missing manuscript here, a scribe accused of sedition there. Cleopatra walks a fine line, partnering with Caesar while shielding her city's identity. You wonder how long it can hold. One night, you wake to the sound of rushed footsteps. Not panicked, but urgent. You follow the noise through winding streets until you reach the docks. A storm brews above, lightning teasing the waves. A merchant ship, heavy with scrolls, prepares to depart for Rhodes. Not escape, but safeguard. A young woman approaches you. She's a cartographer, eyes bright with fear and fury. If they burn it again, she says, we'll still have maps. Somewhere, she presses a sealed bundle into your hands. This one shows Alexandria, before, during, and what we hope after will look like. You promise to protect it. In the following days, you hear whispers. Caesar plans to leave. The Senate summons him. Trouble in Rome. Cleopatra remains. She's visibly more powerful now. Advising openly, ordering directly. Some praise her brilliance. Others call her dangerous. You find her once in the gardens, alone, feeding birds from her palm. She sees you and nods. You approach. Do you think the library will ever be finished? She asks softly. No, you reply, because learning never finishes. She smiles. Good, then turns back to the birds. You return to your duties. Copying, teaching, organizing. The work feels sacred now. You're not preserving the past. You're planting the future. A philosopher gifts you a scroll titled The Shape of Flame. It's a study on how ideas spread, how destruction moves like thought, and how rebuilding mirrors memory. He signs it, for those who stay. You stay, on the anniversary of the fire. The city holds a vigil. No torches, no fanfare, just quiet. People gather in the library's new courtyard, each carrying a fragment of text, of memory, of meaning. They place them in a circle. You place the cartographer's map. Someone begins to hum. It turns into a chant. No words, just rising and falling like breath. Alexandria's new pulse. The stars above blink slowly. The same stars once charted by those lost scrolls. You wonder if some of them are still floating out at sea, hidden in crates, waiting for safe harbor. You walk home past murals of phoenixes, dolphins, and fireflies. You realize that Alexandria has stopped mourning, not because it's forgotten, but because it remembers differently now. Through action, through creation, you place the miniature Thoth on your windowsill. He stares east, toward the rising sun. The next morning, you wake before dawn, not from noise this time, but from silence. A silence full of promise. It begins with a rumor, a single phrase, tossed into the wind near the agora. The ships are coming back. You overhear it from a man sharpening knives. You hear it again from a girl with a caged songbird, and again from a priest who doesn't stop walking as he says it. The words cling to the city like mist. By the time the sun sets, Alexandria is restless. At first, the murmurs are met with shrugs. Ships always come and go. But this is different. These are warships, they say, the kind with reinforced rams and decks lined with soldiers. Roman ships. You walk faster that night, past the harbor, the hills, the new mural of Isis holding a scroll. Something shifts in the air, more than breeze, more than unease. It's a pressure, as if the sea itself is about to exhale. You don't sleep. Few do. You sit on your rooftop, legs tucked beneath you, listening to the city hum like a plucked strain. Somewhere in the dark, someone is singing, not loudly, just enough to remind the silence that it doesn't own the night. Morning comes without color. The sky is gray. The sea is gray. Even the stones feel faded. You head to the library early, where the usual rhythm is broken. Scribes huddle in corners. Some pack scrolls. Others just stare at the door. A courier bursts in. No need for parchment. His eyes carry the message. The ships have anchored. Dozens of them. Not Caesar's this time. Another faction. Some say loyal to Rome. Some say sent by Rome to clean up Caesar's mess. You step outside. The harbor swells with masts. The lighthouse looks smaller somehow. In the days that follow, tension coils tighter. The new Romans are not as polite as the last. They march noisily. They demand rooms in homes. They throw coins on the ground and wait for children to scramble for them. The city tolerates. Alexandria has seen worse, but its patience has limits. On the third night, a fight breaks out, not a skirmish, an explosion. Near the southern granary, a Roman soldier shoves a merchant. The merchant spits. The soldier draws steel. By morning, 2 are dead, 4 wounded. The market closed. Word spreads fast. Cleopatra issues a statement urging calm. The Roman commander offers no apology, only orders. You help board up the smaller library wing, just in case. Inside, the scrolls smell like sandalwood and dust. You help hide some in empty oil jars. Others are tucked behind statues. It feels like hiding children. A scholar named Menon approaches you. His hands shake. They'll burn it again, he says. History repeats, doesn't it? You don't answer. You don't know. But that night, you visit the docks, just to look, just to count the ships. And that's when it happens. A single torch, flung from a rooftop. It lands on a supply cart. Oil barrels. Fire leaps like it's been waiting. Chaos follows. Shouts. Running feet. The unmistakable crack of timber giving way. You grab a bucket. Instinct more than plan. And run. By the time you reach the western docks, it's no longer a fire. It's a blaze. Wind whipped and wild. Buildings catch like they've been coated in regret. Someone screams. The library. You sprint. But not there. Not yet. You run to the smaller annex. The one you helped fortify. You and 5 others form a line. Passing buckets. But it's not enough. The flames lick the windows. One man weeps. There were Aristotle's notes in there. He moans. Another just says, "Run." You do. The streets are a maze of heat and ash. People call for loved ones. For water. For answers. You see a woman cradle a box of scrolls like a child. She trips. They scatter. You help gather them, not because you can save them all, but because you must try. You make it to the main library gates. The air is thick, not just with smoke but memory. You touch the stone, warm, too warm. Inside, chaos. Scribes shout for order. Apprentices run with cloths soaked in wine. Someone throws sand on a small flame. It dies, but more rise. And then, a sound you'll never forget. The crack of a ceiling beam. Not breaking, surrendering. The east wing collapses. People flee. Not all make it. You help an old man out, his robe torn, his scroll bag empty. They'll say it was fate. He mutters, but it was men. You look back once. Flames paint the walls. The mural of Apollo splits. The statue of Athena falls. And the air smells of ink. You collapse in an alley. Lungs burning. Someone hands you water. You don't ask who. You just drink. In the morning, Alexandria is quiet. Smoke curls like the tales of forgotten letters. The sun peers through a haze of grief. You walk the perimeter. Not all is lost. Some rooms stand. Some scrolls remain. But the heart is ash. A crowd gathers at the harbor. Blame flies. Romans accuse Alexandrians. Locals accuse the new soldiers. Some say it was a Greek rebel. Others whisper, it was always going to happen. You see Cleopatra in the distance. Her face unreadable. Her hands clenched. She says nothing, just turns and walks into the palace. The city enters mourning, not formal, but deep. You find a scroll in the rubble, charred but legible, a poem about stars. You keep it. That night, someone leaves flowers outside the library gates. Others follow. By midnight, it's a garden of grief and hope, because even in loss, Alexandria remembers how to bloom. The wind returns 2 days later. Not the hot wind that came with fire, but something different. Cool, coastal, uncertain. Alexandria smells less like smoke now, and more like salt and scorched copper. You walk slowly, carefully, as if your feet might bruise the city further. The library still stands, or parts of it. The Western Archive has collapsed. The lecture hall is blackened, its mosaic floor charred beyond recognition. But the central rotunda survived. Somehow, you enter it like a chapel. Inside, silence, not reverent, stunned. You pass others like ghosts. A boy dusts ash from a shelf. A woman sets up a makeshift desk where the catalog once stood. A scribe draws the sun on a scroll, over and over, as if trying to relight the sky. Someone reads aloud. The words crack like dry parchment. We begin again, they say. No one responds, but no one leaves. You climb the upper levels. Burn marks stripe the columns. The air smells of ink and vinegar. You find a surviving scroll, philosophy. Probably something about time. You don't read it. You hold it. That's enough. Down at the docks, boats arrive with crates and questions. Rome has sent investigators, or so they say. Their robes are too clean. Their boots too dry. They speak in clipped Latin and walk like they're measuring the damage in coins. They ask who started it, who failed to stop it. They ask about Caesar, about Cleopatra, about the weather. They do not ask what was lost. That question, it seems, has no audience. You help where you can, moving rubble, organizing salvaged texts, calming panicked scholars who suddenly forget entire languages. Someone says, we need a new index. Another replies, we need a miracle. Cleopatra visits the site one afternoon. No procession, no trumpets, just her and a small guard. She walks slowly, looks at everything, says very little, But when she reaches the steps, she kneels, picks up a single shard of scorched marble, holds it, then nods, and leaves. The message is clear. We continue. That night, you eat lentils by candlelight with a group of scribes. One tells a joke about Plato and a fishmonger. No one laughs, exactly, but someone exhales louder than usual. And that's enough. Someone else hums a hymn. You don't know the words, but you remember the tune. Days blur. You mark time by what's rebuilt. The East Wing, cleared. The archivist's chamber, stabilized. A shipment of papyrus, delayed. A new rumor. Someone is copying texts by memory. All of Aristotle, from the mind alone. He was a student of logic. Someone says, they remember everything. You nod, but silently hope for backup copies. You find yourself in the old astronomy chamber one morning. The ceiling is gone, and sunlight pours in like truth. A young girl sketches constellations in the ash. You ask her what she's drawing. The stars. She replies, in case the sky forgets. You help her add one more. Outside, arguments bloom like weeds. Who failed whom? Was it sabotage, negligence, divine judgment, a curse from Isis, a trick by the gods? You let the words wash over you. The truth feels too fragile to pick apart. In the square, someone performs a puppet show of the fire. Little wooden Romans with cloth flames. It ends with a phoenix rising from the ashes. The crowd claps, not because they believe, but because it feels good to have an ending. At the palace, Caesar remains, though he rarely appears in public. Some say he writes scrolls of apology. Others claim he's drafting blueprints for a new Wayne. You're not sure. You only know he walks the halls at night, leaving boot prints in the soot. You pass a woman sketching what remains, not for beauty, but for proof. They'll forget otherwise. She mutters, even this, especially this. You ask if she's a historian. No, she says, just stubborn. You like her immediately. Later, you're asked to help interview survivors. Not formally, just to listen. You sit with an old man who recites every scroll he ever read. In alphabetical order, you nod for an hour. He cries once, mid-word, then continues. The merchant tells you he lost everything, then gives you a pear. You look tired. He says, it's overripe, it's perfect. You record it all, not with ink, but memory. The way the air trembled, the way the walls whispered, the way no one ran in the same direction. You walk the shoreline, watch birds circle where ships once docked. The water is calmer now, reflective, like the city. A statue is unveiled, not of Caesar, not of Cleopatra, of a scroll, wrapped in flame, below it. Memory endures. You don't cry, but you stand there a while. Someone tells you a saying, the library burned, but Alexandria still thinks. You repeat it to yourself as you walk home, and that night you dream not of fire, but of light. You wake to ink-stained fingers and the scent of wet stone. The scriptorium has moved temporarily into what used to be a bathhouse. Steam ghosts linger in the air, and old statues peer out from behind hastily assembled shelves. Someone hands you a wax tablet. You don't know why. You take it anyway, pressing your fingers into the surface, watching as your warmth leaves a faint mark. It's morning, but the light filters through old lattice and slanted lines, as though even the sun is unsure of this new world. By now, the city moves like a body recovering from fever. Each day feels a little steadier, but no one walks without glancing up. Fire taught everyone to measure sky. You notice it in small gestures, how people duck under archways more quickly, how merchants scan the rooftops before setting out their goods. Alexandria remembers. Outside, repairs begin in earnest. Marble blocks creak into place. Columns are assessed, each tapped with a hammer, like a tooth under inspection. Some stay, some fall, all are renamed. You hear debates over styles, origins, even metaphors. This one feels too Roman, that one too theatrical. And then someone inevitably says, "We need something that speaks Alexandria." You help rebuild the Northern Archive, the new one. The stone is fresh, but the design is older. Inspiration from Babylon, one architect mutters. With Greek discipline, you nod. You're just here to carry tiles. Someone drops one, it shatters. No one gets angry, just quiet. The mason kneels, runs a finger over the shards, and hums a song you don't know. It sounds like mourning and hope folded together. Cleopatra visits again, this time with engineers. She points often, asks questions. Can we make it cooler in summer? Can light pass through a ceiling? Will this survive another Caesar? The last one gets a laugh, even from Caesar, who stands in shadow. She wears green this time, a color not seen in the city since the fire. It looks like spring against the gray dust. They're a strange pair, him and her. Fire and smoke, everyone's watching. Some think she manipulates. Some say he admires her mind. You've seen her speak to bricklayers like philosophers, and him spend half an hour watching a turtle. So you decide not to decide. Wisdom, you think, is not always found in choosing sides. At night, you return to the partial library, a half-burned space still being dusted for fragments. You find a section on poetry, amazingly intact. You read one aloud, about a sailor who lost his shadow at sea. A scribe nearby smiles. We lost ours too. He hands you a fragment with only one line. The stars remember even when we do not. The markets return, tentative at first, fruit, linen, small silver icons. A man sells scroll scraps as charms. From the old library, he claims. Some believe him, some don't care. Memory, it seems, is also marketable. A woman sets up a table with clay tablets pressed with old quotes. She charges more if the quote is melancholy. People value sadness more than truth. She winks on the steps of the theater. Performers return. One troupe stages a comedy about a philosopher who tries to reason with fire. In the end, he marries a bucket. The audience howls. You do too. It feels good to laugh where echoes used to hide. Another troupe performs a tragedy about a scribe who loses every copy of his life's work, except the one line he hated. The crowd is silent until the final bow. Then applause rises like wains. Some scholars refuse to return. What's the point? They argue. Everything can burn. Others double their efforts. Then we must copy faster. There are whispers of building sister archives, one inland, one on the Nile's other bank. Scatter the eggs. One scholar says, let fire chase shadows instead of centers. You pass a man carving letters into stone, not names, ideas, so that even if they find only the rock, they'll know what we were thinking. You ask what he's carving. Wonder is a kind of armor, he says, and we need to wear it. More scrolls arrive from Athens, pergamon, Carthage, gifts, replacements, some are even duplicates. The scribes cheer, redundancy is divine. One jokes, no one argues. A young girl, barely 10, arrives daily to help bind the scrolls. She hums as she works, a tune that feels older than the bricks. Caesar eventually leaves. No parade, no farewell, just a new marble bench with the inscription, I saw, I stayed, I leave. The bench is warm in the afternoon sun. You sit there sometimes, so do strangers. Once, someone left a peach. No one took it. It ripened, softened, vanished. The rebuilding becomes ritual. Each stone laid feels like a word reclaimed. The new rotunda rises taller, not to defy fire, but to invite more air. This one breathes. The architect says, you believe her. You hear a child say, this one sings, and somehow, that feels true too. One morning, a storm sweeps in, lightning cracks, rain slaps rooftops like warning hands. The city pauses, holds its breath, then exhales. No smoke, just water. Children cheer, adults smile behind hands. Someone says, we're baptized anew. Someone else says, no, we just got wet. You attend a lecture in the new hall. The topic, memory. The speaker opens with a joke. Memory is a library on fire. Nervous laughter, then discussion. Ideas spark again. One young man argues that the purpose of memory is not preservation but transformation. If we copy it perfectly, it dies. If we remember it differently, it lives. You walk through the halls slowly. A candle flickers against polished stone. You see your reflection. You look older, wiser, sadder, all appropriate. You run a hand along a fresh column. It smells faintly of cedar and ink. One night, you find an old woman copying texts by moonlight. Her hands shake, her eyes blur. Still, she copies. Why, you ask? Because I still remember. She replies. You offer to hold the page steady. She nods, and together, the words find new paper. And then you understand, the library never truly burned. Not while she writes, not while you walk, not while even one person remembers the shape of a sentence, or the way a scroll feels warm after hours in your hands. The knowledge lives in laughter, in debate, in quiet copying under starlight. The fire took pages, not meaning, and as you walk home beneath a sky that is, finally, clear, you think, maybe fire is not the end of wisdom. Maybe it's the beginning of its next chapter. You return to the ruins, only to discover something remains. Not the scrolls, but the feeling, the silence, the listening. You realize the library never burned completely. It simply changed where it lived. The sun is lower now, not quite sunset, but nearly. Alexandria's light turns gold before it turns gray. You step onto cracked marble, your feet tracing the ghosts of scholars who once walked here. Heads bowed, scrolls in hand, minds on stars or atoms or gods. A breeze moves through the broken columns, and you hear it, not wind, but breath. The library is still breathing. Children play in the courtyard, not loudly, almost reverently. One draws lines in the dust, another stacks stones into a tower. They don't know this was once the center of the world. They just know the ground feels safe again. You watch as a boy pretends to read a rolled-up reed like a scroll. He announces, it says we will have figs for dinner, and the others cheer, Laughter curls upward like incense. You pass the spot where the astronomy wing once stood. There's no dome anymore, just sky. Someone has etched constellations into the floor with charcoal. Orion, Cassiopeia, a lion labeled mother's cat. Not accurate, but somehow true. You kneel and trace the lines. Your fingers come away blackened. You don't wipe them clean. The marketplace has changed. Fewer sellers now, but each stall feels deliberate. Scrolls and codices, ink and papyrus, little jars of ash labeled from the old wane. You suspect that last one is a trick, but you don't say so. People need relics. You buy one. It smells like cloves. A man nearby offers to read your palm. You extend your hand out of habit. He frowns, then laughs. You carried too many lives. He says, let some go, or they'll carry you. You wander farther. The streets curve in new ways, wider, lighter, homes with rooftops that catch more sky. The city feels taller, as if it learned how to lift its chin. Near the harbor, someone sings a low song in a language you half recognize. It blends with the sea wind, and for a moment, you forget the fire ever came. That's the thing about memory, it never burns all at once. Some pieces hide in cracks, in voices, in dreams. You stop by the new library gate. It's not yet finished, but the frame stands proud, carved into the arch, for all who seek. Still, the stone is pale, almost white. It glows in the late sun. You step through the scaffolding and into what will be a reading hall. No scrolls yet, no shelves, just open space. You sit on the floor. There are others here, quiet people. Some sketching, some thinking. One girl reading aloud from a fragment. Her voice soft but certain. You catch only a line. Knowledge is not stored. It is practiced. And suddenly, you remember a moment from years ago. A teacher dropping a scroll into your lap. Don't memorize, they said. Engage. You hadn't understood then. You do now. An old man enters, barefoot, with a tiny clay pot in his hands. He places it in the center of the floor. Inside, one ember, still warm, still red, no smoke, no blaze, just the echo of fire. Held gently, everyone gathers around it. No one speaks. The silence is full. A child asks, "What is it?" The old man answers, "It's what's left, and what's next." That night, as the stars rise one by one, you return to the rotunda, the newer one, the one that breathes. Its high windows catch the constellations like old dreams returned. Someone lights a candle near the entrance. Others follow. Soon, the circle glows. A woman hands you a stylus and points to a wax tablet on the table. Write what you remember. You hesitate, then begin. You write about turtles and philosophers, about scrolls that smell of salt, about a woman copying texts by moonlight. You write about the way silence holds more truth than shouting. You write about ash that fertilizes, not just mourns. You write that fire is not only an ending, it is a refiner, a revealer of what must be rebuilt. You write until the wax is full. Someone takes your hand. You don't look to see who. Just hold tight, and in that moment, in the stillness that follows, not sleep, not waking, but the gentle drift between, you understand the truth. The library never left. It lives in fingers, in eyes, in the curve of rebuilt columns and the hush of a candlelit hall. It lives in every question still dared, and in every answer still becoming.